This is called Driving Across America. My wife and I, we used to drive almost every summer all the way from where we live in Dubuque, Iowa, to the West Coast, to Southern California. And I think if you want to get a feel for the United States of America, at least the western half of it, I recommend you take a trip like that. We'd start out in Iowa. Iowa is luscious green. Iowa has some of the deepest topsoil in the entire world. In many places, it's 15, 20 feet of topsoil. And we get a lot of rain. So things just grow like crazy. And Iowa is cornfields and soybean fields. And it's just luscious green, unbelievable green. And of course, on top of everything is the sky, these absolutely beautiful blue skies with these white fluffy clouds floating past. But as you drive west, the whole country begins to kind of flatten out and get drier. The green turns to brown and eventually turns to gray. We'd come down through Kansas, diagonally through Kansas, and Kansas, it just goes on and on and on and on. It seems like you're never going to get out of Kansas. You forget that a lot of the Old West, what we call the Old West, was actually Kansas. So, like Tombstone and, Deadwood and Boot Hill, this kind of stuff is Kansas. And then you're in the panhandles, the panhandle of Texas and the panhandle of Oklahoma. And I was always a little bit scared in that area. For one thing, that's where all the meat comes from. They have these enormous meat operations. I don't guess feedlots. I'm not sure what they call them, but they're enormous. They'll go on for miles. You'll be driving along, and for miles you'll be driving past these feedlots. It'll be like one enormous feedlot that is maybe 5 miles wide all along the freeway. And you'll see it'll be divided up into pens, and you'll see there's cattle in these pens, and it's flat country, but it goes as far as the eye can see, all the way to the horizon. You will see cattle in these pens, thousands of cattle, hundreds of thousands of cows. It's just the scale of it is astonishing. Right in the middle of the whole operation will be like a meat pack, where they'll I assume butcher all those cows, and there'll be railroad train tracks, and they'll load up all that meat onto these railroad cars and ship it out to every part of America. All the McDonald's and all the Burger Kings will be getting this meat. And of course, the stench, I assume that's why they have it out in the middle of nowhere. All the smell of these cattle, all the manure, all the butchering and blood and everything. You really want to get a sense of the power of the fast food industry. Drive through the panhandles. Then you're in the desert. You're in the desert states. It is very hot. It is completely flat and dead. You get plants that just really tough plants that can live without any water for long stretches of time. But little tiny towns, little trailers, house trailers in the middle of nowhere. You imagine some kind of, I don't know, descendant of a prospector lives in there. Towns entirely inhabited by Native Americans. You run into out in the West. And then, amazingly, you'll be in Albuquerque. Albuquerque is like 1 million people in the middle of nowhere. Uh, it boggles my mind that Albuquerque can actually exist. Las Vegas is the same way. How can this many people live right out in the middle of the desert? How is there enough water for all these people? You can see where the electricity comes from. I assume it's coming from, I don't know, Hoover Dam or someplace like that. But there's these enormous power grids marching all the way to Albuquerque, across, I don't know, hundreds of miles of desert, providing, rivers of electricity for the people that live in Albuquerque, for the people that live in Las Vegas. And then you cross in the Painted Desert and the Mojave Desert. The wind kicks up. Oh my God, strong gusting winds. Sometimes I would see, entire SUVs had been blown off the freeway, laying on their sides out there on the side of the freeway. But nobody around. I'm not crazy about SUVs, and semis are the same way. Semis are like, I don't know, like billboards or something. They present that huge rectangle of space, and the wind just blows them. Makes the whole semis will kind of rock back and forth in the wind, in the wind sometimes. Then you're crossing Oh, the radio. I always remember as you move to all those, like the panhandles and those desert states, there's nothing on the radio. Well, I mean, you can listen to like religious broadcasting. I mean, religious broadcasting makes me go insane. I can't listen to that stuff. So it's like country western. You can listen to like new country western, which I find kind of boring, kind of like crap rock and roll. Or you can listen to classic country. So usually I'm listening to, Patsy Cline and Merle Haggard and stuff like that. And if you get tired of that, you can listen to Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh, oh my God, they love Rush Limbaugh out in those states, those desert states. He's just babbling away like a paranoid nut, just yammering away for hours at a time. I used to get a little, if I would listen to Rush Limbaugh for even 15 minutes, he hates liberals, and I am a liberal, and I would think, oh my God, all these people out here, they're listening to this guy. They probably hate people like me. And I'd start remembering those movies, where somebody runs out of gas in a little town in the middle of nowhere. And it turns out the town is entirely inhabited by cannibals, who hate liberals, so I just couldn't get through that part of the country fast enough. Uh, uh, the desert, man, you think about how people walked across the desert, people, hundreds of miles. Like how did they do that? With oxen and horses, and just walking across the Mojave, up the mountains, trying to find a pass. It's just even driving across that. I mean, the temperature can get 90, 95, 100 degrees, over 100 degrees sometimes. Um, Man, I am impressed by the toughness of the people that walked across to America. Then eventually you get to the Mojave. I mean, you're far enough. You're all the way to Barstow, and Barstow's in California, and you feel like, oh my God, because you feel like the country is so empty. Like nobody lives in this country. Huge areas of this country are practically empty, and then you get to Barstow, and Barstow is the beginning of what I think of as Southern California proper. And man, it's freeways. And I don't mean those little 2-lane freeways. I mean like 6 lanes going down the mountain, and 6 lanes of bumper to bumper traffic. Uh, Man, the way people drive in California is scary if you come from the Midwest. You come from the Midwest and you think you're supposed to keep spaces between you and the car in front of you, like 3 car lengths between you and that car. That's not how they drive in California. If there's any space opens up, somebody moves into that space. So you've got like 6 lanes of traffic all going downhill, 80 miles an hour, God help you. People go to California just for the amusement parks, and they love the roller coasters. But roller coasters, man, they are designed by skilled engineers to keep everyone alive, and that is not true of the California freeways. I think the California freeways are more terrifying than any roller coaster. Save your money, just go driving down those freeways. Um, Everything is in California. The population of California, just LA County is like 6-7 million people. The entire population of Iowa is I think less than 3 million, right around 3 million. You could fit every single person who lives in the enormous state of Iowa into one corner of LA County, and every imaginable kind of person lives out there. Of course, that a lot of Latinos, a lot of Spanish speakers live in Southern California. That's certainly true. But I don't know if you know that a huge number of Laotians live there. This is whole Sikhs, Russians, huge millions of Chinese live, Japanese. It's like the entire world lives in Southern California. There's restaurants of every imaginable kind. It's wonderful there. The museums, the universities, the strip malls. Oh, the smog. Oh my God, it's a little scary. If you're used to the blue skies of the Midwest, man, Southern California is like an enormous bowl of smog. If you're up on a mountain looking down into it, you can just see the smog sitting there. And if you're down in it, if you're down there in the valleys, you look up in the sky, man, it doesn't even look like a real sky. It's kind of brown, sometimes it's kind of greenish. I mean, it's the color of it's a colors of sky that you have never ever seen if you live in the Midwest. It's a little terrifying on that level. All those cars belching exhaust smoke, all those factories and manufacturing centers, all those power plants. Man, that is filthy sky. People in California are thrilled if they can even see the mountains. Oh, look, the mountains are out. Um, palm trees. I mean, there's things. I mean, smog is smog, and it's disgusting. But man, California is it's a happening kind of place. I always feel like the Midwest is the old United States. It's the old 20th century United States, outside of the big cities anyway. A place like Dubuque is like the old United States, but California, man, that is the 20th, 21st century. That is the America of diversity and energy and extremes of poverty, extremes of wealth. That's Southern California. But I have to admit, the whole place seems kind of temporary to me. I mean, it's the desert. It's the desert, for God's sakes, and that there's millions and millions of people. How can all those people live out there? Swimming pools. Half the people that you visit in California have swimming pools. They have zoning laws that require the people to keep water in their swimming pools. Even if they're like 80 years old and they haven't used a swimming pool in 20 years, that swimming pool has to be full of water. All that water evaporating in the desert, and that's required by law. So I always think, I don't know, someday it's just all going to go away. All, you know, there won't be any way to keep providing the electricity. The water will run out. Maybe I'm wrong, but man, it seems like a, oh, the ocean. I Man, there's nothing like the ocean. If you're from a Midwest boy and you stand on the edge of the ocean and it just goes out to the horizon and you realize that's just the edge of the ocean, it's magnificent. I don't really know what to think of our country. It's just so big, it's so enormous. But I think if you want to see it, if you want to get a feeling for our country, all of it, the beautiful, terrifying country that it is, this empty, crowded country, this scary, wonderful country, drive across America.